fabulously fabulous, marvelously marvelous, wonderfully wonderful science fiction theater of the imagination proudly presents Extreme Gravity, the new radio play written by J.D. Evans Jr., starring Elvis D. Tripp and his traveling troupe of strange voices, and featuring the musical talent of Milford Whittle and his finger puppet marching band, with silly announcements by Warful the Potato. We continue with Chapter 1 on the Asteroid. It felt as if it were a cold night and the wind should have been howling. On the ship's forward display screen, Bakra could see the work crew returning from the underground assembly area. Dr. Suzanne Cronin was leading the crew back to the ship. Psi, ship's artificial intelligence, displayed a message indicating the work crew would be at the forward lock in 47.07 seconds. Probability 0.997. Suzanne was the lead physicist on the gravity generator project. The prototype generator was nearly completed and testing was scheduled to begin in 48 hours. Bakra could see that Suzanne and her crew were moving more slowly now, and he hoped it was more of an indication of boredom than a sign of exhaustion. When the project started, the work crews would hurry back to the ship after their shift was completed so they could begin discussing the day's progress without having to be concerned with the communication protocol enforced during work periods. Now, after 3 months of monotonous internal assembly work, there was seldom anything exciting to discuss except for an occasional gross encounter. Gross was the name everyone used for visual rock, the crystals that release holographic images when exposed to light, usually immediately after coming to the surface as part of a load of newly excavated material. When the work crew was 30 seconds away from the ship, according to Psi's calculations, Psi activated the external 50-meter illumination system. With the more intense lighting, Bakra noticed a sharp contrast between the deep red dust on the work crew's suit and the light, almost white gray dust on the asteroid's surface. This contrast of dust reminded Bakra of the difficult search for an asteroid having an abundant iron substrata and readily available silica on the surface, both of which were crucial requirements for the project. Suzanne and her work crew were now entering the forward lock and would be ready for decontamination in a few minutes. There had been no contamination problems on this project as contrasted to other projects Bakra had known or worked, but the company had policies and his job, at least in part, was to ensure the project went according to plan, and this included enforcing company policy. One positive side effect of decontamination was keeping the work suits clean. The first step in decontamination was to spray the work suits with a special solution designed both to clean and to renew the external work suit covering. The cleaning solution destroyed all organic life forms on contact, important because the solution was recycled, and created an impervious fluid layer directly adjacent to the outer covering of the work suit. Once this protective fluid layer was established, excess solution floated the dust and other materials off the work suit. After the excess solution was collected, the work suit was sprayed with a neutralizing solution and dried via vacuum venting. Then fresh air was added to the decontamination room and the crew was allowed to de-suit. This procedure took about 10 minutes and was generally viewed as a tolerable necessity by the work crew. In a few minutes, Suzanne contacted Bakra on the chipcom and reported the results of today's work.
Suzanne Cronin, A19, X54, W775724Y2, Psi, AC.
Hello, Dr. Cronin.
I need to talk with Bakra. Is he on the bridge?
Yes, he is waiting for your report. Securely, ready, on your AC.
AC. Bakra, I I have good news.
Well, I'm all ears.
We've finished the prime mirroring, and initial testing verifies accuracy within specified tolerances. Pi has already given Psi a full report. The technical details are available if you want to review specifics. This is one of our project milestones.
Good work. I scanned Pi's report and noticed that you had done some testing, but it wasn't immediately obvious. This was a project milestone. I think I understand people better than technical reports.
We all have our strong points, Bokra. Has Professor Darkstone reported?
Not yet. I expect to hear from Dave within 15 minutes. If it's important, I can have Psi set up a comm link.
No, I can wait. But I do need to know how his crew is doing with the cabling. We're almost ready to begin connecting the laser interfaces. So I hope he's ready.
He should be ready now if I have interpreted Pi's updates correctly. I'll have Psi flag this.
Anything else?
Not right now.
Okay, get some rest. And I'll see you at 0800.
0800?
Dream 9 wants a progress report, and they've sent Jack Callens, one of their junior directors. He arrives at 0700. I'm glad we have something significant to tell him.
Does he want to inspect the site?
No, I don't think so. Dream 9 just wants to remind us who the boss is. A little pomp and ceremony, and he'll be on his way, providing Professor Darkstone doesn't bring up the Drost issue again. I will remind him not to do that.
I think that's a good idea. Without recording equipment, which we haven't had until recently, it's all speculative, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Dream 9 needs a fully functioning generator in this quadrant. And because it has to be movable, your prototype generator gets top priority. What we do with and about the Drosts is very secondary to Dream 9, as long as it's kept a low priority project. Professor Darkstone should know that.
He should, but he hasn't worked on a Dream 9 project before, and he doesn't understand the way it works, at least not on something like this. Tell him to keep his mouth shut. The last Dream 9 representative was a Saber operative. We may not be so fortunate this time.
I want to show you something. Can you meet me in the front observation deck in an hour?
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Barker looked away from the shipcom screen and sipped his coffee while he did a routine scan of the auxiliary monitor screen. Everything looked to be in order, and the remainder of the incoming crews were nearly finished with the last of their shift duties. He listened to a little of the audio that went with each screen, but made an effort not to listen to any conversation that sounded personal. As commander, Barker was authorized to monitor everything happening in the ship, but he generally considered personal conversations among crew members to be a private matter. The crew did not have the luxury of using the secure link without Psi's approval, and Barker thought that since Psi monitored everything anyway, he would defer judgment regarding when to get involved in a private matter to his eyes and Psi's ears. This policy worked well enough in military situations and had caused no problem on this scientific project. It was a little after midnight, so Bakra asked Psi to give him a current status display on the Dream 9 courier ship. He watched the screen and took note of the trajectory and ETA for the courier ship, as well as the apparent absence of any military escort. Something that seemed to be a little strange, but not so much so considering the location of the asteroid. Nothing out of the ordinary anyway. Bakra put in a call to William, Officer Strap Williams, DRN, letting him know he would be ready for shift change in a half hour, and then began finishing all the small tasks that needed to be completed. In about 15 minutes, Officer Strap Williams, DRN, entered the command room and let Bakra know he was ready.
Well, good morning, Bakra.
Strap, would you like some coffee?
Sure would. It's a little earlier than I expected. Is anything important happening?
Not really. I just need to check on something and didn't want to have to do too many things simultaneously. Psi has a current status report, and I've completed my shift log, so you should be able to take it from here. Here's your coffee. It's Kenya AAA from Earth. I've only got a few pounds of Blue Mountain left, so I'm trying to save it. You know, we don't get another supply ship delivery until July, and I don't want to have to endure 4 months of company coffee.
This tastes good. Not Blue Mountain caliber, but good just the same. I suppose it's none of my business, but do you think Dr. Cronin is getting a bit more involved with the drosts than might be reasonable? I mean to say, it's an interesting phenomenon, but it's not our primary mission, is it?
Officially, I agree with you, but off the record, I think this might be important. It involves light, and we're using light in the gravity generator. If the drosts have some interaction with light, the holograms they release appear to indicate they do, then I think it's reasonable to collect at least enough information about them to allow us to determine whether they will interfere with the project.
Well, I guess that makes sense, but why off the record?
Because this isn't something we expected, and we don't want to stir things up at Dream 9. We're on schedule, and that's all Dream 9 cares about, so they leave us alone. And that's the way I want to keep it. Psi, erase our conversation about the drones. On my act. Strap, I'm going to talk to Dr. Cronin in a few minutes, and I hope she'll give me some more information. Do you have anything more on the subject before Psi does the erase?
No, I just wanted to let you know it's been on my mind.
There's something else I want you to do. Dream 9 is sending a junior director, Jack Cavins, to check on our progress, and he is due here at 0700. Monitor his flight and let me know if you see anything out of the ordinary.
Like what, Bakra?
Like company. The Dream 9 courier ship is by itself, and while that's not so unusual this far out, the fact that it is this far out means that we need to be alert. We control this sector, and I don't want Dream 9 to have any reason to change our authority. I don't want to be used as an excuse for the elimination of junior directors, if you get my message.
Roger.
If you need me, let Psi know. Stay out of trouble and enjoy the coffee.
Okay, if you find out anything, let me know. Later.
Okay, it's all yours. Bakra put his coffee cup in the cubbyhole marked Commander and left the command room. Officer Strap Williams, DRN, made an official start of watch entry with Psi and poured himself another cup of Kenya AAA coffee from Earth. In the hallway, Bakra didn't take the usual path that led to his cabin. He was going to meet Suzanne and didn't want company, so he opened a door labeled Authorized Personnel Only and went inside. Psi, secure priority, Saber.
Instruct.
I need a tube to the forward observation deck, and I need to be alone with Dr. Cronin when I get there. Act? Psi opened an iris that led to the tube and indicated safe to enter by illuminating the opening with a blue light. Bakra entered the tube and proceeded to the forward observation deck. In the interim, Psi arranged for the few personnel remaining in the forward observation deck, with the exception of Dr. Cronin, to get messages requesting them to attend to duties in other parts of the ship. Psi did this in a way that was computed not to seem unusual to those involved. Probability 0.794. Acceptable, considering that anyone happening to learn about the meeting would think it was a matter of romance and nothing else. Probability 0.999. Psi also initiated a macro to monitor personnel movement with respect to the forward observation deck and to divert Sane, and its first pass was very quickly to change the label on the door that Bakra had just entered from Authorized Personnel Only to Commander's Cabin, and likewise to change the labels of a few more adjacent doors until Professor Darkstone, who appeared to be trying to follow Bakra, had to stop and walk back to the last door he passed just to make sure he didn't get confused and somehow get lost again, which seemed to be happening to him a lot lately. Psi could be very helpful when authorized. Suzanne heard a whoosh and looked over to the wall just in time to see Bakra step out of a blue-tinted hole. Since the forward observation deck was dimly lit, the effect of the bluish light shining out of the tube was a little more dramatic than it should have been, and this startled Suzanne momentarily. Bakra thought this was almost amusing, but suppressed the chuckle that wanted to accompany the thought.
I wish you wouldn't do that. It scared me.
I'm sorry, Suzanne, but I didn't have much choice. Darkstone was coming down the hall, and I wanted to avoid him for a while. Sai thinks he may have been trying to follow me.
Maybe, but it's very probable that he wanted to report that he was in the ship. You know how he is. He doesn't feel right unless he reports everything he does to someone.
Well, as long as he keeps getting the work done, I can avoid him when I want. Pi told Sai that Darkstone's crew completed the optical cable torus installation. They're scheduled to begin short-duration pulse testing tomorrow. That's probably what he wanted to tell me.
And maybe use that as an excuse to get some information.
That's why I need to see what you've got before I can let Darkstone talk to me. Suzanne reached into one of her suit pockets and removed the small dross she had wrapped in cloth and put there earlier. She unwrapped the stone and handed it to Bakra. What's special about this one, Suzanne? Suzanne got out a miniature laser pen and told Bakra to put the dross in the palm of his hand. She then stood behind him, held her hand over his right shoulder, turned on the miniature laser pen, and directed the laser beam into the dross. What happened next startled Bakra, and Suzanne didn't suppress her pleasure in watching his expression change from shock to amazement, because right there in front of him was an archway that appeared to lead into another world. Bakra saw a shiny, black road that looked to be made of polished marble, leading to a fortress-like stone castle off in the distance. It appeared to be the middle of the night here, and there were many bright stars in the sky, accompanied by several marshmallowish clouds and 3 moons, one white, one pale orange, and one light purple. There were scattered trees next to the wide grassy areas on both sides of the road. Bakra saw several groups of tiny flickering lights circling the outside of the castle in an almost random pattern. But except for this, which was quite a lot, he saw nothing else. No other light, no machines, no animals, and no people. Suzanne put her left hand on Bakra's left arm and held it tightly.
Be very still, Bakra. Sai, secure priority. Sailor.
Instruct.
Record this. Total spectrum. Bakra, we're going to take a step forward.
Is what I think is about to happen going to happen?
Yes.
You've done this before and it's safe?
Yes.
Okay.
Right foot first. Step on 3. 1, 2, 3.
And then, much to Sai's dismay, Suzanne and Bakra vanished from the front observation deck. Sai continued recording, continued the personnel movement macro, and initiated a new macro to devise a method suitable for clandestinely acquiring a dross as quickly as possible. Sai concluded that Suzanne and Bakra were now in another world. The first chapter of Extreme Gravity on the Asteroid. Stay tuned for the next chapter, Another World. This has been brought to you by the fabulously fabulous, marvelously marvelous, wonderfully wonderful science fiction theater of the imagination. I'm Warble the Potato. Good night.